Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Sims 4 speed build. So today I am doing something a little bit different. I'm actually building 4 houses and this is a tiny home community. So fun fact, I've actually never built a tiny home in The Sims before. Somehow I've always just avoided doing them. And so I decided I wanted to do a different kind of build this week, like just for fun. And I don't know, I thought a tiny home would be fun, but like, why do one when you can do 4 houses all at once? So, you know, jumping in feet first, but that's okay. So yeah, I've kind of avoided the whole tiny house thing for a very long time for a variety of reasons. Mostly because I find that basically my experience with tiny houses is very limited. In real life, that is. It mostly boils down to TV shows where people get tiny houses, and overall they really annoy me. Like, not the shows themselves or the houses. I think the houses are actually like really creative and ingenious, and I sort of wish we had more of those features that we could have like in The Sims 4 that they have a lot of times in tiny houses, like ladders that can pull down from the ceiling and that sort of thing. But it's mostly because of the people who buy tiny houses, at least on TV shows. They generally really annoy me. So, yeah, I don't have like the greatest association with tiny houses because it just drives me crazy when people like want to buy a tiny house and then they complain that their house is tiny. It's like, did you not know what you were buying when you got into this? Like, it's literally called a tiny house. Like, like I remember I was watching an episode, I think of like Tiny House Hunters once, and it was a family of like 5 people. It was like a mom and a dad and 3 kids. And they weren't like small kids, mind you. They were like school age on to like teenagers. And they wanted to have a tiny house that was like, I think it was like 600 square feet, which for 5 people, that's really, really small. Like, so I didn't grow up in an official tiny house, but the house that I grew up in was about 1,000 square feet, and we had 5 people in that house. And I have very vivid memories of my mother in particular, like about once a day, complaining about our house being too small. And we moved out of that house when I was almost 12. So my youngest sibling at that point was about to turn 7. So like we were smaller kids at that point, and that house was too small. So I can't even imagine having a house that's like half of that size with people who are double the size that we were. So, but in general, I just find the people on those tiny house hunter types of shows kind of annoying. And so for a very long time, I've always had this like kind of icky like relationship with tiny houses, but so I decided to get over that though, and actually a lot of this came from an article I was reading recently about different tiny house communities that have kind of popped up around the country. Specifically, there's one in Detroit, and I wish I could think of the name of it off of the top of my head. I want to say it's like related, it's like Cass Social Services or something. But basically, they have a tiny house community. So if you're not from the United States or don't know anything about Detroit, Detroit was hit really hard during the Great Recession about 10 years ago. And so as a result of that, large chunks of the city are like uninhabited. Like, they're just vacant. They had a lot of issues with like foreclosures on homes, and people just like fled the city. And so then over the past 10 years, then obviously the city repossessed a lot of vacant properties and demolished them, which, I mean, yay, but then also now there's all these like empty lots all over. Actually in the city of Detroit itself in particular, like less in the suburbs, but mostly in the city itself. And so, but now like all these like neighborhoods that, have been around for a couple hundred years are empty and there's nobody living there. So, and then also they have now a very high population of homeless people because all these people lost their homes during the Great Recession. So it's like, okay, we have empty lots and people who need places to live. Like, duh, let's put 2 and 2 together. So anyway, so there is a I don't know if it's like a community project or who it is that's in charge of this, but basically it's a organization of some sort that has put together these tiny house communities specifically for homeless or low-income families. So, and what's really great about this one in Detroit in particular is that, because there's a lot of communities that have kind of popped up around the country that have done similar things, but this one in Detroit is very unique because they actually have what they call like a rent-to-own program. So most of the tiny house communities for low-income families, or individuals for that matter, a lot of them are rentals only. But then, like, renting is fine, but then eventually, like, it can lead to problems down the road. Like, a lot of times people who rent because they don't own the property themselves, they tend to not take care of it as much. And then over time, then that leads to like a downfall of the entire community itself. And then for the people themselves who are renting these properties, they're basically throwing their money away each month. So, and that's the biggest issue, is that if you're renting long term, your money isn't going towards eventually owning something. You're giving it to your landlord, and hopefully your landlord is using that money to like maintain the property. But of course, there's a lot of like shady landlords out there who don't do that, and then that just makes the whole problem so much worse. So renting can be good. I'm not like trying to like downplay renting or whatever. Like, I've rented. It's cool. Not ideal, but it's cool. But the eventual goal is that, especially for people who have low income, where eventually owning their own property is very, very limited, they have a rent-to-own program. So, like, as long as they're, like, making their rent payments, and they have to, like, I think they have to do, like, some sort of, like, not community service, like in a court type of setting, but, like, they have to do stuff around the community itself to improve it. So, they are financially and emotionally investing in their community as well. And then eventually their payments that they've been making towards their rent each month on their tiny houses can go towards them buying the property themselves, which is, of course, the end goal. Owning the property. Yay! So, and of course, with a tiny home, it's a lot more manageable because the rent is a lot cheaper. And then, obviously, then eventually the, payments for maintaining the house once you've owned it are a lot cheaper. Like, the electricity bill is a lot lower because, it's a smaller place. And for the company that's doing this, it's a lower cost for them up front because, again, smaller space. So, for me, long story short, this is a very cool thing to do. Like, this is what I think tiny houses should be about, is getting people who don't have a place to live. Not to just entertain some, like, weird, yuppie fantasy, but to actually, like, help people. That's the goal. So I was reading about this recently, and I was like, maybe I'll revisit this whole tiny house thing after all. So basically, I tried to recreate my interpretation of a tiny house community. So I used actually pictures from the article as like loose inspiration, which, I mean, if you look them up online, you'll see that. But yeah, so basically I did 4 houses. The first 2 that you've seen are very traditional on the outside, maybe a little less traditional on the inside. The first one is meant for a single person. In fact, it only has a single bed. It doesn't even have a double bed in there. And then this one that we're looking at right now is actually meant for a small family. So it's also the only 2-story tiny house, which, the second floor is just, it's a loft bedroom. It's like, that's where the kid sleeps type of thing. Because, of course, in The Sims, can't really do like a true loft type of setup, but this is like the best you can do. So, but yeah, so this one is a family house, and then the next 2 houses are a little bit more modern in style. The first one that you'll see is like what I would think of as like an artist retreat. It's very, very modern looking. Like, it has concrete floors, and there's like an easel and drop cloths, and then the next one is someone who I sort of picture as maybe like a person who's more into gardening. Like, they have a lot of outdoor space, and it has a grass roof. And I also sort of pictured that this person had a cat, because I realized that I don't do a great job of remembering to put pet items in my builds. And I was like, you know what? I came across a cat statue when I was decorating that house, and I was like, yeah, the person who lives here, they could use a cat. And then I also did like a community garden, so like, you know, the people living here in theory could go and grow their own food to cook, because again, that's one, community involvement, very important, and two, also good because then, you know, you get like cheaper food, because it's kind of a strange thing. I don't know if this is the case in other countries, but at least in the United States, healthy food is way more expensive than like cheap fast food. Or like, not cheap fast food, all fast food's pretty cheap, but like, you know, the more unhealthy stuff, like, you know, like you can get like a little container of cut fruit and it'll be like $5, and that's like one portion. Or you can get a large order of French fries at like McDonald's or Wendy's or something, and that could be a side dish to feed your entire family, and it would be like $1.50. So I don't understand that. Like, this is, you know, not to get like super preachy, but like it does sort of make you wonder, like, okay, is it any surprise that the United States and the world in general has like an obesity epidemic? Like, of course the cheaper food is going to be what people go for, because if you don't have the money to buy food and you have to feed an entire family, like, what other choice do you have? But that's a discussion for another time. So this house here is the like more modern artist style house. I tried to do like a glass roof. I think it turned out okay. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how to do this whole glass roof thing. I'm more happy with how this particular glass roof turned out. I'm still not 100% happy with how it looks in general. Like, I think the top part is a little strange, and I've yet to figure out a way to make that little bit that like kind of overhangs not look weird. Like, I feel like it should be like a skylight type of setup more. I don't know. It's a work in progress, but you know, it's getting there. So the other thing that I did was with the two more modern houses, I went with like more of like a warm tone color scheme, both on the inside and outside. And then for the two traditional looking homes, I did like primary colors on the outside and then cool tones on the inside. Just because I thought that would be kind of a fun way to differentiate the two, and it was something a little different. So yeah, so with doing the roof on this house that I did, I was kind of limited as far as like what I could do for the bathroom. So the bathroom is like a 3x1 room. And the reason why I did that is because I basically have a one tile border going around the entire perimeter of the house, with a regular roof over top of it. So that meant that unless I wanted to have a skylight overlooking the bathroom, which meant that the walls for the bathroom wouldn't technically go all the way up to the ceiling, because on the glass roof part, there is no ceiling, obviously, so then you can get the glass roof effect coming in. Then there isn't really a wall that would go all the way up to the ceiling for the bathroom, and I thought that that was just a little strange. So it's a very small bathroom, but, you know, there's a shower, there's a toilet, there's the essentials, it's taken care of. So in this particular house, then, the only sink is the kitchen sink. And actually the other modern house is set up in a very similar way, and we'll see why in a minute. But yeah, so for this house on the inside, I went with a lot of yellows. So I used like the countertop from Jungle Adventure, which I'm very pleased with this counter in general. I'm not sure why they decided to go with like the gray cabinets with like that bright yellow countertop, but I mean, like, not complaining because I'm using it in this build. It's just very different because most of the other counters and cabinets that we have are like very traditional, like wood tone colors, or like you might get a gray or a white, but really there's like that one base king counter that comes in a lot of colors, and that's kind of it. And I don't know, that cabinet in particular is just not, or the counter in particular is just not my favorite. So yeah, I didn't want to use that one. So I was very grateful to discover this Jungle Adventure one had this weird yellow swatch on it. So yeah, and then I gave this one a double bed just pushed up against the wall because, you know, trying to save space. It is a tiny house after all. And oddly enough, went with a jungle adventure bed. Like, I wound up using a good amount of jungle adventure stuff in this house. It just kind of, like, sort of coincidentally. I do also use a bit from City Living in here as well, just because I think there's a lot of stuff in that pack that's kind of funky and unique. It works well for, like, an artist's type of residence, which, you know, I mean, like, we did get the art critic career in City Living, so I suppose that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, and I tried to, where possible, on like the houses that have the more open bedroom setup, like basically all three of the houses except for the family house have that, where the so-called master bedroom isn't really a bedroom, it's just sort of like a bed shoved into a corner. I tried to make it seem like there was some illusion of privacy there, you know, in a couple of different ways. So like this one, I have the screen from City Living. Otherwise, then you walk into the front door and it's like, bam, bed. And then I also use the high back love seat from City Living as well. So, you know, it kind of doubles up a little bit. It's a place to sit, and it has the screen. So yeah, and then this house in particular actually doesn't have a TV, but I figured, you know, they don't all need to have TVs. It's cool. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know that any of the houses has a computer. I was going to give a computer to that very first house. There's actually a computer desk in the first house, but I don't think I put a computer on it, because at that point I was trying to like stay more budget friendly, and that did not last. That went out the window pretty quickly. But yeah, so then this last house is, I think it might be my favorite, which is weird for me because normally I'm not a huge fan of like more modern looking houses, but it's kind of like a southwestern style. It's very orange, like very orange. Like, I don't know. I discovered that orange swatch on the door and then I just kind of ran with it. Like, the outside is orange, the inside is orange, but I think it works well. And like I said before, again, we had to do a 3x1 bathroom here. And on this one, it's because I built this house at a diagonal. I know I did the first three kind of all lined up in a row, but I didn't want to have the rest of the build be like so, I don't know, linear, I guess. So I decided to do something just a smidge different here and build it on a diagonal, which, you know, typically that's not always a great thing to do, because especially kitchens, it seems like kitchens are really hard to do on a diagonal because of how the counter system works. But I think, you know, I think it turned out okay. I didn't do anything super fancy on the kitchen, so it's a very small kitchen, actually. There's a lot of floor space, but I think as far as counter space goes, this might be the smallest kitchen we have. But, you know, again, it's a tiny house, and there's enough space for you to, like, there's, like, the sink, the stove, the refrigerator, and then one spot to do food prep on. So it's not, like, a total waste. Like, there's enough there where you can get done what you need to get done. But yeah, actually, I felt like this house, because it was built on a diagonal, we ended up with more floor space somehow, and I'm not sure how that really happened. But yeah, I think it has probably not a great layout, but maybe one of the better ones for this house. Or for this lot, I guess. Also, I am like fighting back a yawn right now, like you would not believe. I'm very tired. I woke up this morning at 4 a.m. Because I had to go to the bathroom, which, you know, I mean, I'm 25 weeks pregnant at this point, so that's like not totally unusual. But then I couldn't go back to sleep, and then like I got hungry, which at that point it was like game over. Like, I had to get out of bed and eat something. Like, it was just not good. Like that moment when I realized that I was starting to get hungry, I was like, well, this is it. This is the time that I woke up for the day. So I've been up for a very long time. I did eventually fall back asleep on my couch. Like, I didn't mean to, but I just sort of dozed off to sleep for a little bit longer. But, you know, sleeping on your couch is just not as restful as, like, actually sleeping in a bed. And I could have taken a nap today at some point, but I didn't actually feel all that tired until about an hour ago. And it's like 8 o'clock at night right now when I'm recording this. So I'm not going to take a nap now because then that's going to mess up me sleeping at night tonight. And then I would have 2 nights in a row with bad sleep, and we really cannot have that. So I'm just trying to push through. But yeah, so anyways, so this house is obviously very orange. But yeah, I think this actually might be my favorite house. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Which one is your favorite? Because I'm very curious. Like, obviously with the way that I've done this, I don't know. I could probably upload each individually as a room to the gallery. I don't know. Or I don't know. I could potentially figure out a way. The only thing is that the 2-story house, I don't know that I'd be able to do. Uh-oh. There goes a yawn. Oh no, I'm so sorry. But yeah, so the 4 houses are done at this point. So originally I was going to do a really large garden, and then I was like, you know what? These people need to have like some recreation as well, besides just like having a garden for their community, which, like, I mean, gardens are great, don't get me wrong. They're beautiful, they're wonderful, they're lovely, they serve their purpose. But like, I feel like I would probably get to know my neighbors more at like a neighborhood swimming pool or a cookout rather than like gardening. Because, you know, gardening, like, I feel like it's like a class project. There's always going to be a few people who are really into doing a class project, and then like the rest of the group just sort of like coasts. Not that they slack necessarily, but like they're not out there every day weeding and watering and, you know, or maybe they don't have like, you know, a green thumb necessarily. So, but a pool and a little area for a barbecue, everybody can use. So I decided to put in little pool area. I even put in a toddler pool eventually, which that's one of those things that's like, when The Sims 4 Seasons was announced and they had like the trailer, I was like, oh my god, toddler pools, finally. Like, I was so excited for it, because especially since we got that ball pit thing, I'm like, okay, ball pit technology, probably not too far off from toddler pool technology, am I right? But now that it's here, I find myself forgetting about it a lot. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because the households that I have toddlers in, I tend to not have them in warm weather, or I tend to be very busy with the other kids. Like, I've been doing a 100 baby challenge in my off-camera save file lately, and it's a lot of fun. Like, I'm very, very much enjoying it, but it is very stressful. like those toddlers, I'm doing good to get them like skilled up and potty trained and everything before they age up, and like it is tough. So like there's very little recreation. Like, let me tell you, those toddler iPad things that they have in the game, those things are a godsend. I mean, they're expensive, but like I'm at the point now where my sim is like doing okay financially, so like we have a couple of toddler iPads that just stay in our family inventory, and I'm like, all right kids, sit down, you're gonna learn your thinking skill now. Okay, you leveled up that one. Okay, now we're gonna move on and we're going to do imagination. And like, that's kind of how they learn all their skills except for potty training. But yeah, so toddler pool hasn't really happened very much, but that's okay. So yeah, so anyway, so this is, after I finished, I decided to do some more work, because that's just how I operate. I can't stop. Like, even today before I uploaded it, I went back in one more time and I was like, well, maybe we could add in some cute little street lamps with hanging baskets. So, you know, I just don't know when to quit. But yeah, so I put in some fake plants temporarily just to make the garden look a little bit nicer and like screenshots and stuff. But, you know, if you download this, feel free to delete them and actually use it as a functional garden. Or you can leave the fake plants there and just keep it decorative. It's up to you. But yeah, so this is the Tiny Homes community. It's currently available on the Sims 4 gallery. You can get to it through either the link in the description box below this video, or you can search for it on the gallery using the hashtag Mrs. Tomato 1018, or you can search using my username, which is also Mrs. Tomato 1018. Just make sure you select newest first before you start searching so that it will actually show up. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you can do so down below. I put up a new video every single day, Monday through Friday. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye. Thank you.